Hello, and welcome to Badger Talks Live, which brings exciting happenings, resources, and talent from your UW flagship campus to the people of Wisconsin and beyond. I am Caitlin Beckwitz from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm a recent graduate with a Bachelor of Science degree in Textile and Fashion Design from the School of Human Ecology. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce Design Studies Associate Professor Marianne Fairbanks. She is a textile artist with over 20 years of making experience. Among many other things, she shares her passion for textiles, sustainable design, community, collaboration, and entrepreneurship with her students in classes like weaving and off-loom structures. I took Weaving 1 with Marianne my junior year, and her passion helped me discover a love of textiles. Even though I was in the apparel program, I ended up taking Weaving 2 and worked on a year-long senior thesis that resulted in about 15 yards of hand-woven material that I've used to create a variety of apparel looks. I was fortunate to have the opportunity to have been inspired by Marianne and have her guidance and help through this process. Marianne has an MFA in Fibers and Material Studies from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, was a participant in the International Exchange Program at Kyoto Seika University, and earned her BFA in Fibers from the University of Michigan School of Art and Design. Please welcome Marianne Fairbanks.
Hi, Caitlin. Thanks so much. It's great to see you there in the studio. I'm trying to get some work done in these times. I'm so happy to be here. Welcome, everyone. Hopefully we'll have a good time doing some weaving today. I'm going to start by going over some slides and showing you sort of some of my work that involves weaving, and then we're going to dive into two demonstrations. And even if you can't do the demonstrations along with me, perhaps you can watch the video later and participate in some of these projects that we're going to do. So I'm going to just go ahead and start going through the slide presentation, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks for joining today. And also, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask, and I will try to answer those as we're moving through the slideshow and the demonstration. Okay, so in this first image, I just wanted to pull up a blanket. It's something I had industrially woven. It's my design. I had it industrially woven here in the US. So what I wanted to demonstrate were all the different ways that I use weaving. So for example, I didn't weave this piece, but I was interested to have something produced in bulk, let's say, and see how I could activate the local economy around industrial weaving. So this is a blanket that I had woven. In this slide, you're seeing two investigations that are really grounded in how we understand weaving in sort of in the USA and in these iconic, the lawn chair, for example. So I was really drawn to how lawn chairs activate the woven structure in something that's so utilitarian and everyone's using all the time. And so for this, I ordered a lawn chair, sort of changed the webbing that would normally be there. I painted it in this example and was trying to play a lot with pattern and woven structure. And on the left, you're seeing a larger wall work that activates the same idea of a woven structure in these big, kind of obnoxiously colored materials to demonstrate some of the principles of something called color and weave, which is a really cool optical effect that can happen with different patterns in weaving. I just wanted to include these to show some more experimental weaving done on a hand loom. So I wove these on a floor loom, and then I mounted them onto these more graphic black and white canvases. So sometimes when I do more traditional weaving, hand weaving, I still find ways to try to activate them to be shown in new contexts. So here, again, bright, a lot of material experimentation. And then I also do works that involve a digital loom. So something that's very high tech. It's a jacquard loom where every thread is individually operable. And I'm able to achieve things really intricate and sort of image-based like this weaving. And here I'm going to show you a slide of the loom. So this loom is something that we have at the university. I use it and my students use it. I try to teach a lot of structure and complex weaving on this loom. I just finished teaching a class called Zeros and Ones, all about digital weaving. And this is one of the outcomes, another outcome of something that can be achieved on a digital loom. So because there's more variation of what is optional in the digital loom, you're able to create more pictorial imagery, things that are representational in a way that maybe the floor loom cannot achieve. And then this piece is up at the Chazen right now. It's part of a faculty exhibition. And while it's not technically woven, you can see it really is inspired by woven structure and also by the work of Richard Anuskowitz, whose work I was responding to there in the gallery. It's all about color and pattern and spacing. And so if you are able to get over the Chazen, this piece is still up. And even if you can't go inside, you can see it from outside. So I encourage you to visit that while you can. And this is only based in 4 different colors and sort of the intersection of those colors. And then a project called Weaving Lab is something I started back in 2016, actually, here at UW in the Wisconsin Institute for Discovery, where I decided I wanted to bring weaving into a more public genre. And so it was a space that I created to kind of activate weaving and think about not only production, like what does it mean to have a production line of cloth, but also to think about all the things that are stereotypical about weaving, like, oh, it takes a lot of time, or it's meditative, or it's really complicated math systems. So what I sort of did was to set up each loom as a space to investigate some of those ideas and to produce publicly. And so it ran for 2 summers, 3 months in a row, and perhaps some of you were able to come and visit during those times. And I've then taken this project to, last year I took it to Scandinavia. I went to Norway and Denmark and Sweden. And so I look forward to opening it again. And I had plans to open it in Milwaukee this spring, but the show has been postponed. So keep posted on that. Follow weavinglab.com and you can get some updates. And then as part of that, we were able to do a lot of science Saturdays, again, spreading the word around weaving, activating a lot of kids' interest in the practice of weaving and how it works, the systems, the patterns, the design. And one of the things that came out of my desire to sort of spread weaving and get it in the hands of many people was the invention of this laser cut loom. So I made it a small loom, and it's the size of an iPhone. It's called the Hello Loom. And it also has to do with the idea of communication. I think weaving has the ability to send messages or involve messaging. And so here, these laser cut looms were something I was able to distribute at Weaving Lab, but also have now evolved into a business because so many people wanted to buy the looms after the fact. And I love the idea that people could then have something small and experimental to play around with on their own time. So again, there's Hello Loom. It's not what I'm going to be showing you today for weaving at home, because what we're going to work on today doesn't need any materials really other than string. But the Hello Loom has, if you go to our website, we also have tutorials on how to use this tool. And one of the things I love about having this as a tool is that a lot of educators have started taking it and using it within their classrooms. So here's 2 examples of professors who've incorporated, everyone from textile history to a more technologically driven class. And so that really thrills me, the idea of getting weaving out there in the world. And then here's an image of a worksheet that I created that has the ability to sort of think about what weave patterns are. So one of the things I'll start with teaching you about weaving is that with weaving, there's 2 elements. There's the warp, which are the threads in tension, and generally, I think you can hopefully see my mouse, they're stretched along the vertical axis. And then there's the threads that intersect it at 90 degrees, and that's called the weft. So we have warp and weft. So it's a binary system. So you perhaps have heard that weaving has a relationship to computer coding, for example, and that's one of the reasons why, is it's a 0 and 1 situation where there's an up, which is the warp, and weft, which is the left to right. That's how people remember it, left, weft. And those are intersecting. So there's either the warp up or the weft up. And so when you look down here at these diagrams back on the slides, you'll see that there's this checkerboard pattern, and that is representing something called a plane weave, because every other thread, the black is the warp, the white is the weft, is up and down. And I think many people have probably done a plane weave before. And then here you'll see a couple other different weave structures, and we're going to get into a paper woven version of exploring some of those like this. So with my students, I often start by handing out this paper, and I have shared the JPEG of this with the Badger Talks folks, so you hopefully can download it and print it out on your home printer. And with just simple materials like paper from a newspaper or a magazine, cut them into strips, and you can start exploring and understanding weave structural patterns really quickly. So I'm going to start with that in a few minutes here. And then I'm also going to show how to do something called book weaving. So I learned book weaving from my college professor. Her name is Sherry Smith. I studied at the University of Michigan. And she taught me this only a year or two ago. She said, oh, if you know, I showed her the Hello Loom, and she said, oh, here's another cool way to show people how to weave really quickly in a portable way, where you wind the warp around a book and use it as sort of a frame. So the images I'm showing you now were made by students in my class this past spring. And basically, what we're going to do together today is we're going to stretch the warp around the book, and I'm going to show you how to do some simple weaving, changing colors, thinking about patterns. One of the things that I've included as I've used this project a couple times is the idea of connecting the contents of the book. So what is the book about? And how might the weaving on the outside reflect some of those inside mysteries, or the novel of it, or maybe it's a nonfiction. And so I think it's really a fun way for students to connect what they're making with what they're thinking about. I really love that idea of the conceptual. And here a student really delved in and made a whole series. So Harry Potter was the theme of her work. And what I love is that she really tried to isolate the theme from each book of the 7, is it? Now I know there's 8 movies, but I think there's only 7 books. Anyway, so I thought this was another good instance of someone really paying attention to what the book is about and trying to articulate that on the outside. So it's sort of a cover design, I guess, in a way. And here's a few more experimental weavings. The one on the left is more pattern-based, looking at different ways to do more complex patterns. Something is called tapestry weave, where it's always just usually looking at plain weave and using more color variation, as you see on the right 2 images here. And then finally, I always love the one with the teeth because it looks so, I don't know, gross in a way, or a little bit scary, but apparently the book is such, so it's really reflecting the contents of the book. And the other 2 here, I think, are just experimental in different ways. One, I think the middle one, sort of showing the woven shape is sort of mimicking the shape of the hay bale on the cover. And then the one on the right, I love the use of the negative space within the book. So those are my examples that are going to sort of lead us into the demonstration part of today. So I think I can close down the slideshow, and we're going to move over to the first worksheet.
Go ahead and leave the slideshow up.
Oh, okay. I'm going to just go ahead and go to the worksheet. So at any time, if you have questions, please type them in, and I'll try to answer that for you. Here is the worksheet. And again, what I wanted to show you is here, you probably can't see it, it's a little bit small, but it says the black dot is illustrating where the warp is up, and the white one where the weft is up. That's that binary system. And by doing the left twill, what I've done is I've taped these 8 lines of paper, which are all about 1/4 inch wide, to the background. And I've numbered them at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what that is mimicking is what in a floor loom would be how many harnesses we have, because often floor looms have 4 harnesses. So there are 4 different, it's hard to talk about without the loom being here, but 4 different harnesses. I don't know another great word to explain that the threads are attached to that can lift it into creating loom controlled patterns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this weave draft. This is the language of weaving. It's always black and white. Perhaps you've seen it before. I think it has a lot to do with sort of the way music works as well. Music is a mathematical language, I think, also. But here, what I'm going to do is follow this here. So here it's saying to lift 1 and 2 every first and second thread. So I'm going to lift, it's not a thread in this case, it's a piece of paper, but I'm going to lift both sets of 1 and 2, and I'm going to put my first line of weft paper in there. So for this, I've cut out magazines, and then I found this gold paper that I thought was really beautiful, and so we're using that for the weft. In my second line, and we're going to create a left twill, which basically it's called a 2-2 twill because 2 threads are up, 2 threads are down, 2 threads are up, 2 threads are down. So it's a balanced weave. It's very even. I'm going to go to threads 2 and 3. That's the next one on the list here. And I'm going to lift every second and third thread. And then I'm going to put the weft there. And perhaps you've heard the word twill. It makes a nice diagonal in the weaving. You can see here. Twill is also used in your denim jeans. So you've definitely all probably worn jeans before, and you know denim inherently, so you know what a twill is. It's a very sturdy fabric, very classic weave structure. So here, again, I'm just following. I lifted every third and fourth thread, and now finally I'm going to lift every fourth and first thread. Or piece of paper in this case. It's not a thread. But what you can see, it's a little bit complicated because of the patterning on my paper, but you can see a really nice diagonal that exactly mimics this structure. So for my next one, I'm just going to do 1 or 2 more of these. I'm going to choose a new color. Should I choose black? Maybe I'm going to choose black in this case. I'm going to lift 3 and 4 because now I'm going to go back the other way. And the reason I wanted to start by showing you this is because once you understand how you can play around with this, you can really get experimental on your book weaving. All right, where are we? 3 and 4, 2 and 3. So now the diagonal is going to go back the other way and create a really cool zigzag effect. There we are. 2 and 3, 1 and 2. And on my diagram, I'm not sure you can see this, I labeled my threads here, or my warp threads here, warp papers, and then I also labeled them at the top so that I could just be very clear of keeping track of which ones to lift. Every time I'm shifting one warp thread over. And then finally 4 and 1. And that can go on and on. We could just keep weaving that same thing and have a really beautiful twill, or we can move on to some of these other patterns. I think what I'll do is after this, I did these 2 weaves, the left twill and the right twill. This one's leaning right, this one's leaning left. I'm going to skip down to the plain weave because that's essential, and that's what we're going to use in our book weaving. And again, many of you have probably done the plain weave. So here it's telling me to lift every first and third thread, and so that's every odd thread. And now I'm going to lift every second and fourth thread, every even thread. So I love this too because if you're teaching kids math, principles of math, you can talk about odds and evens, about systems, structures, codes. I think weaving is really bringing codes to life as something very visual. So back to 1 and 3. So I'm just going to do 4 of these, and then we're going to move to the book weaving because time is flying. So once we can see this in these big materials, it's nice to move over to the thread so that I have an understanding of what is going to happen when I start weaving on the book. So I think this is very accessible to anyone at home because everyone has paper and everyone can play around with this. There's lots of color possibilities. I could change these colors at any point and create something very dynamic and beautiful. So that's sort of a short introduction to weave structures. They're also called weave bindings, weave patterns. They're called all of those things. And now I'm going to demonstrate or start to show you some of the book weaving. So this is a book weaving that I started and did a demo of, I don't know, on YouTube back when class was in session, so maybe back in April. And I stretched the weaving and I showed a bunch of different effects. Plain weave, using 2 different colors, doing something called a basket weave, and then some more textural weaving. So I don't think we'll have a time to get into all of that today, but I'm going to show you the basics. And here, ta-da, I have another book. This is just a book that I thought had a very beautiful cover. And so this is the first step that we're going to get to, but we're going to start on this oceanology book, excuse me. And what you'll need for this tutorial is tape, a fork or comb, scissors, and popsicle sticks or a knife. If you have a tapestry needle or something like that, you are more than welcome to use it, but I feel like in lieu of something like that, this is a great option. And so we're going to begin. I'm going to start by winding, see this color maybe? For the warp or the threads that we're going to wrap, you need a longer thread. So I'm taking the end of the warp thread and I'm going to put a little tape on it. And I'm going to turn over my book and tape it to the back there. So now my goal is I don't have to put this super tight. I'm not trying to like strangle the book. I just want to have it be a nice even tension. And I'm going to wind the threads, the warp threads around the book. And one thing you'll see me doing is kind of straightening them. I don't want them right on top of each other. I want them sort of evenly spaced out. And you may be wondering like, well, how many threads should I put or how wide should it be? And I guess I don't have an answer for that exactly, other than to say, if it's your first weaving, I would recommend starting at like 3 or 4 inches. Like to do the whole cover, the width will be a little more challenging. Not that you cannot do it, you can do it. But here, I'm gonna suggest maybe starting with like about 3 inches wide, and I'm leaving a bit of a space between the yarns, but trying to create something even. Wind, wind, wind. I'm gonna kind of cut to the chase. I always call this Martha Stewart style because I'm being fast about it. And the thing also always comes out of the oven already cooked. She has like 2 going or whatever. Anyway, so here I only have about a little over 1 inch, and I'm gonna turn it over and tape the back. Now I could tie those 2 threads together, but tape is a-okay for me right now. So I do not have the 3 inches I recommended, but in the name of time, I think I will, I would have you keep going with that until you get about 3 or 4 inches. But here, ta-da, Martha Stewart style, I'm gonna go back to this weaving, this book that has the warp already stretched. And in this case, it's black. So one of the things you'll see me do, and I like to show as a really shortcut to weaving, is I have this kind of wider popsicle stick or tongue depressor, whatever it is. And I'm gonna go over and under every thread, every other thread. Because I'm gonna just start with a plain weave. And I just get in there and shove it right under there. And now I can open that. Look at that, I use the popsicle stick to open it, can you see? And I'm gonna take my first color. I don't know if you could notice, probably from my artwork, that I love bright colors. So I have this really bright yellow, and I'm gonna start with that. So because I use that popsicle stick, I can go ahead and open that right up. So awesome to use that little shortcut. And what I'm gonna do is pull that thread all the way through, and I'm gonna use this trusty fork to push this stuff down. And as you can see, I sunk my end all the way to the middle. Now I'm gonna put that down. Basically, this is called a shed. I opened a shed, or one part of the weave. I'm gonna push that out of the way. And now with the popsicle stick that this is attached to, I'm gonna pick up every other thread. I'm leaving that first popsicle stick right in there. And I'm getting in there, getting every other thread here. And so with weaving, one thing you have to do is when I attach this weft thread, it's like about 1.5 yards long or something. You have to pull all of the threads through to be able to weave it to the back or to the side, because this is the width of my weaving, and I don't want to pull in too tight. Like, that is a tendency, and if I did that, it would weave really narrow. But I want to give the space to really do their thing. So I could keep doing that plain weave every other with the same color, but I'm going to rapidly jump into a new exciting yarn combination, because I can change yarns at any time. And what I'm going to do is, now I have a new color combo, and this is something I was excited to show you, is like I can do 2 at a time. I don't have to do 1 weft at a time. I can do 2. And remember that trusty popsicle stick? Now I can open that shed. So every other time, if I have that popsicle stick in, I don't have to reopen it or go over and under each one. I can just use what's already there. Ta-da! And what you're going to see me do here is kind of tuck the extra threads in, because I like a clean selvage, which means I don't like messy threads coming all up the sides. And now again, I'm going to kind of plop those down, close that shed, push it out of the way. And now I have this really beautiful combination of like a navy blue and a royal blue. So this is the time where I'm picking up every other thread. I don't have my pre-shed opening. So far, I haven't heard any questions, so hopefully this isn't too confusing, but please do not hesitate. So perhaps you're asking, why would I do this? Why do I want to spend time weaving? Because it's so fun, is my answer, number 1. And number 2, why not? Get off a screen, make something. Experiment. Display your weaving proudly. Send it to a friend. So now I did 2 lines of weft or picks, and yellow, and now I have the 2 lines of blue, and I'm going to go back to the yellow because I want to create like an interesting color combo. We'll see. I don't know. I'm kind of just making it up as I go along. So I'm putting that down, and now again I have to pick up every other. So this business might be a little boring of watching me weave plain weave. So I'm going to try something new here, where now you saw me do a line or a pick of weft, 2 of them in yellow, 2 of them in blue. Now I want to do both at the same time. So I'm going to meet these in the middle and have yellow weave here and blue weave here. Why not? So I'm going to go to about the middle point with my yellow and come up. Pack that in. And then I'm going to go to the middle point with this blue and pack that down. Ta-da. And then I'm going to intersect them in the middle before going back the other way. So that's going to look really cool. So again, I'm using my shed, open shed, and I'm going to put it right in here. You could teach this to kids. You don't have to use this popsicle stick. You could use a needle. I mean, really, you could use experimental materials. You could use, let's say, dental floss. What else do you have around home? Saran wrap, clothesline. What can you put in your weaving that you have at home? Rubber bands. So that's starting to look cool, right? So I have the 2 threads intersect in the middle. Let's do one more time so we can see how to use 2 colors at the same time. So I'm going halfway with my blue. Bringing it over. And halfway with my yellow. So if you're really interested, this of course will be available to view later, but also I recorded a YouTube video that I think they're going to put the link to for you to see that shows this same thing in a few other sort of shortcuts and strategies and weave structures that you might want to go back and watch. So I know everyone's really been into making puzzles lately, or not making puzzles, doing puzzles, but here's another thing that could keep you busy for endless hours. Weaving. Again, kind of packing that down. So I'm kind of going straight up the middle of the work, but there's no reason you couldn't slowly make a diagonal. And this is how, when you're a tapestry weaver, you're starting to make shapes, right? You're really exploring. You need as many threads going as you have within your tapestry design, and you have to have them all going simultaneously. So it can get a little crazy. Let's see, what other things could I show you quickly? Okay, one more thing. I'm going to show you, we've done a basket weave, or I mean a plain weave. Now we're going to do a basket weave, and I'm going to do it with a different color thread here. What color? This color. So with the basket weave, instead of the plain weave where I went over and under every one, the basket weave I'm going to skip and go over, under two, over two, under two, over two. And this is kind of an enlarged structure. So I went over two, under two, over two, under two. All right, so now the new trick I'm going to show you here is I actually need that thread, that weft, to be in there twice. So I'm going to catch it on this outside thread, this outside warp or selvage thread, and send it back the same exact path that it came. But of course, if I don't catch that end thread, it's going to unweave itself, which nobody wants. Unless you're Penelope. Do you guys know the myth of Penelope? Greek myth, where she had to weave and she then unwove every night, because when she was finished her weaving, she was going to have to marry someone because her husband Odysseus was out at sea. Anyway, she wove and unwove for 3 years, and no one was the wiser. So I think that's pretty funny. Relationship to weaving, no one knows how long it takes. They just assume it takes forever. So now you'll see 2 picks or lines of weft, and now I'm going to go over and under the opposite 2. So over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2. I find this to be a really fun pattern for some reason. I think because it's really visible. So same thing, I have to catch it on that outside thread before sending it back. Am I doing the right one? Catch it. There we go. Same pathway. So the other option that people often do, and one of the reasons that I think weaving is a bit inaccessible, is that people think you need a lot of tools or looms. And I guess my point in showing you this today is to say, nope, indeed, you do not. You can weave with almost anything you have at home. If you had an old frame, anything that you could stretch a thread across, you can certainly weave into it. And this past spring, when weaving had to go online, that's indeed what my students did. They just really went to work finding things at home that they could weave into. And it became a really fun experiment. Everything was experimental. It felt really meaningful for them to have something to do with their time and a way to express themselves. So I think I'm going to end it with that. We did plain weave. We did 2 colors. And as you can see, you can change the colors anytime. We did basket weave, over 2, under 2. And I guess one of the things I'll tell you is I could keep these threads going, but everyone always wants to know, well, how do I finish the thread? Well, one thing I could do here is I can weave my ends back in a little bit. So I'm going to kind of do a plain weave from this direction. Tuck that in, clip it. And I'm going to end these 2 other threads too, because when you get to the end, if you wanted it clean, you need to know what to do. So again, I'm going to go back to a plain weave, kind of weave it in, not all the way, but to the edge, or to the middle rather. Kind of clip that. So I'm tucking everything in so it's not hanging out to the side. And finally, I'm going to do this color. And I probably could have done this before I moved on to my next color, but I thought I was going to use it again, so it'll be fine. Clip that. It's looking pretty clean. Of course, I'm going to keep going. And then finally, there's a couple of things about what would I do with this when I got done. I'm certainly not there yet, but a couple options for what you would do. You say you finish your whole weaving and you want it off the book. Well, I guess the first thing you could do is just slide the whole thing off because it's going to be a tube, right? And in this case, it's tied, so nothing will come undone. But what you could do, which would also be a great solution, is to cut here. Maybe I'll do that. It's going to cause a little bit of havoc, but that's okay. Now, lots of it has come undone, but let's just use that as a demonstration. And so if I don't want this to come unwoven, I have to come up with a way to knot these. So I'm going to take 2 by 2 and do a simple square knot. And that's going to end up looking kind of like fringe or what you'd see at the edge of a rug, right? And there's all different finishing treatments that you could do, but this is what I'm going to do. One of my favorite has to do with spinning 2 this way. Quick demo on that. I'm spinning it, spinning it, spinning it. Now I'm going to spin the other 2. And actually, when you get them close to each other, they're going to absorb the twist and twist into a little tassel. So we'll try that here with this. So an added bonus here, finishing. Spinning, spinning. You can see I'm spinning it to the left. A little harder, but this gives you some way to finish it. Another way to finish it would be to get a tapestry needle and weave these back up into the cloth. It's another way. I'm spinning these 2 second threads the same direction. What ends up happening, I find it kind of magical, is the energy of those 2 spins as they get near each other. Let's see if I gave it enough. They intertwine and spin on themselves. So that's a nice, another clean finish, and I might knot the end here. So students are always asking, how do I finish my weaving? What do I do? That's one way. I'm doing that very shortcutted, but I could finish that, and so then I'd have these really nice fringed edges. Sometimes people also, do a little extra and then turn it and stitch it down. That could be another way. But I think for today, you have a couple good starting places: how to change color, how to end your thread, how to do some different patterns, how to paper weave. And that, I guess, is going to be it for weaving at home today. Thank you for joining. And I see here a few comments. Thank you for joining today. It looks like someone's talking about using a lot of textures. I'm a big fan of textures, and it is a great way to calm your anxious brain. Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah, for commenting. And yes, it is portable. The best thing for this process is that why not bring it in the car, or bring it on a road trip, or bring it, if you are able to get out of town, bring it with you. So I love that potential as well. So I hope you all get experimental and start, using weaving as a way to get out some messages, get out some ideas, but also to calm yourself. Thank you so much for joining today. If you have any questions, please be in touch. Watch the additional YouTube videos, get creative, share your posts, share anything you make. We'd love to see what you come up with. Thanks again for joining, and thanks, Caitlin, for the introduction.